in this section, we are going to be looking at section 3.1, graphing inequalities. Alright, so for graphing inequalities, what we're going to start with is graphing expressions like x is greater than or equal to 3 on the number line. So a few things that you need to know whenever you are graphing. First of all, if you have a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to sign, then that includes the number 3. So for example, 3 is greater than or equal to 3 here. 3 is included in the answer. So whenever we're graphing, if we have a or equal to sign with our greater than or less than, then we are going to use a dot that has been colored in. Okay? If we have a greater than or a less than sign without the or equal to, then that does not include that value. So we would use an open circle, one that's not colored in. So if I want to graph x is greater than or equal to 3 on the number line, first I would start off with a number line. Whenever you graph these, I want you to at least put a number on either side. If you put more, that's fine. So you're thinking here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a piece of the number line that we're looking at. And so we are going to see, first of all, that we have a greater than or equal to sign. So right here at 3, I'm going to use a closed colored in circle because 3 is included in our answer. And then this tells me that the numbers that are solutions are greater than or equal to 3. So the numbers that are greater than or equal to 3 are 4, 5, 6. So everything on this side. So I'm going to shade this side of the inequality. So that is our first example. If I have example 2, I'm going to graph x is less than negative 2. So if I draw my number line for this problem, if you had 0 right here, then you'd have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4 as you go to the left there. So when you graph this, you're going to have an open circle here on negative 2 because negative 2 is not less than negative 2. Negative 2 is not included here. But all of the numbers less than negative 2 are included, so I would shade my answers to the left. So, let's look at example 3. This time, I'm going to have 5 greater than x. So if I'm looking at my number line, let's see, I'm just going to put 4, 5, 6, and because I have a greater than sign, there's not an or equal to with it, I'm going to use an open circle again for example 3. And then I'm looking for numbers that make this true. So 5 is greater than x. So 5 is greater than 4. That is true. 5 is greater than 4. And it would also be true for 3 and 2 and 1 and 0 and negative 1 and all the numbers to the left of 5. However, it's not true if I plug in 6. 5 is greater than 6. That's false. So I would shade all of these to the left. Sometimes teachers have taught students that you're going to shade the same direction as the arrow. So for example, right here, that greater than or equal sign, it almost looks like this, like it's an arrow pointing that way, and it is shaded to the right. Whereas right here, you've got that less than sign. It almost looks like you got that less than sign, like it's an arrow to the left, and we shade to the left. This is a good trick that you can use, but notice it does not work right here. Right here I have a greater than sign, which looks like this, but I did not shade that direction. So here is the trick. If you want to use that rule, the X has to always be first. So if I'm using that rule, I would have to rewrite this statement and write X is less than 5. You probably learned in elementary school about the alligator eating the bigger number. So if your alligator is eating the 5, here it still has to eat the 5 whenever you turn this around. Notice how here it was greater than, here I have less than. Now I could look right here. Now I could look right here. I've got a less than sign, which looks like it's pointing to the left, and I did shade to the left there. So let's do one more like this. Let's do example 4. Let's do -3 is less than or equal to X. So if I'm graphing this, let's see, I'd have -1, -2, -3, -4, and as I graph this, at -3, I've got it less than or equal to, so I'm going to use a closed circle there at -3. And notice it looks like it's pointing to the left, and I'm feeling like I should shade that way, but first I've got to rewrite this. X is greater than or equal to -3. Notice whenever I change the sides of this inequality, I have to change the sign. So it goes from a less than to a greater than sign. So now, when I look at this sign right here, it looks like a greater than sign, which looks like an arrow pointing this way. So whenever I shade the graph, I'm going to shade to the right here. And you can always check to see if these values make your statement true. So like, for example, if I take -2, -3 is less than or equal to -2. That is correct. -3 is less than or equal to -1. Also true. -3 is less than both of those numbers, so I know I've shaded it in the right direction. Okay. Let's now look at compound inequalities. So for compound inequalities, these are inequalities joined by the words and, or. Okay, so an example here, our example 5, is going to be X is less than -2, or X is greater than or equal to 5. So if we have to graph this on our number line, we're going to have -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so if I am graphing this X is less than -2, I'm going to have an open circle here, and then I'm going to shade to the left. Whenever I graph X is greater than or equal to 5, I'm going to have a closed circle here at 5, and then I'm going to shade to the right. So whenever I have the answer to this graph, It is just both parts of this graph because either one of these could be true. However, whenever I have an example like example 6, I may have 3 is greater than x, and let's see, x is less than or equal to, hold on, let me change that real quick so I get one that works out better, greater than or equal to negative 2. So whenever you see the word and, whenever you see the word and right here, that word and tells us to look for the overlap. So we are looking for where the two graphs overlap each other because they have to be both true in this situation. So I'm going to graph on the number line. We've got to go, let's see, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. And so whenever I graph x, 3 is greater than x, I like to turn this around. X is less than 3. So that's going to be an open circle on 3 and shaded to the left. Whenever I graph x is greater than or equal to negative 2, that's going to be a closed circle at negative 2. And then that's going to be shaded to the right. So with these graphs, I'm looking for where the graphs overlap, which is everywhere in between here. So typically, this kind of looks like a mess, so typically we'll see this rewritten. And I'm going to put the negative 2 here, and I'm just going to put the 3 here, and we'll skip all those other numbers in between, just to make it a little more simple. So I would have a closed circle on negative 2, I would have an open circle at 3, and I would shade in between the graphs there. Let's look at one more type of compound inequality that looks a little bit different. We're going to look here at an example that looks like this. So example, let's see what number we're on. We are on example 7. So example 7, if I'm asked to graph something like this, negative 5 is less than x, less than or equal to negative 2. So if I have to graph this, if this is written all together like this, it's an and equation. So what it means is that it means negative 5 is less than x, and x is less than or equal to negative 2. So it's all of the x's that satisfy both of those situations. So if I graph this, so negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. So if I graph these, this x is, or negative 5 is less than x. I could also think of this as x is greater than negative 5. That's going to have an open circle on negative 5, and it's going to be shaded to the right. And then at negative 2, I'm going to have a closed circle, and I'm going to shade to the left, and we'll have the overlap in between negative 5 and negative 2. So that's what this graph will look like. Let's do another one like that. So if I have example 8, I will have something like maybe 2 less than or equal to x less than 9. Typically when you see these, they're always going to be less than, although technically they can be greater than. So for this, if we just think about the numbers that fall here, I I know just from looking at this graph, I'm going to have a closed circle here between, at -2. I'm going to have a open circle at 9 because I do not have an or equal to here. And so if I'm looking at the numbers where 2 is less than x, so 2 is less than these numbers, and that number is less than 9, those are the numbers that fall here in between. So typically whenever you see it written like that, that's what you're going to see. You also could just do 2 less than x. You could rewrite that as x is greater than or equal to 2. And you could also say x is less than 9, and if you graph those two, you'll have this graph here. So you're going to be doing some of this for homework, and let me just show you real quick what the homework will look like. You'll be using iExcel, and I'm going to do the compound inequalities for you. So when I say -6 less than x less than or equal to x less than or equal to 0, and I have to graph that, I know that I need closed dots at both of the endpoints, and it's going to be shaded in between here. So I'll click submit. Good job. This next one, these are less than signs, not less than or equal to, so I need open dots. In order to do that on iExcel, just click the dot one more time, and right here we can see we're shaded between 4 and 7, so that looks good. Here we've got -6, closed circle to +1, open circle, looking for or, but you'll get the idea here. Make sure you got these right. Here's one that's and. X is greater than -2, so it'd be -2 to the right, and less than 2. We need open circles for both of those. So there's one with an and. Keep waiting for an or. Or here's the or problem. So for x is less than or equal to -3, I will have this graph. And then for x is greater than or equal to 1, I'll graph that like this. Click submit. Good work. So this gives you an idea of what you'll be doing for your homework. So for homework, I want you to do iExcel.com. I want you to do Algebra 1. And you're going to do sections K1, K2, and K12. And these are all graphing.